All right. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm John Clay, your host and chief strategy guide. Welcome to another installment of Benefits with John Clay. So it's the week before Thanksgiving, November 2022, post pandemic, post election. Gosh, everything. I mean, what will happen next, right? A lot of things going on in the world and the holidays. And so today's topic is very important because as we move into the holidays, post election and all this kind of stuff, we've got a lot of factors at work. And today we're talking about workforce mental health. Now think of this. Imagine an EAP, an employee assistance program, where you call when you're in crisis. You have an employee hotline that you call in crisis, and there's a waiting list for the caller. I talked to a prospect. I mentioned this on the last show, but it created the opportunity for this topic today. We have a potential client with an EAP that has a waiting list for people in crisis. Hey, I'm in crisis. Take a number. We'll get back to you. I mean, come on, people. This is the state of things in today's 2023 economy. Shout out to our sponsor. Today's program is sponsored by none other than Better Source Benefits, www.bettersourcebenefits.com. Click on the Get Started link and book some time with me. I'm happy to do a complimentary evaluation for you. www.bettersourcebenefits.com. I love the way it runs along the bottom of our screen here. So everything is good here, but today we're talking about mental health. And, the pandemic has upended the way that we look at employee mental health conditions. The need existed well before COVID, but it's been exacerbated by the pandemic and other things like remote work, childcare management, all these components of mental health issues have come into play because people are scrambling around here trying to figure out which way is up. Forget about fixing dinner or taking a drive-through with 7.7% inflation. We're dealing with at-home workforce. You've got to get the dog out from underneath your feet just to get on the phone or log into your machine for work. So, we've seen a survey after survey come out, and I've got one here today. I'm just going to read a few statistics from because it's important to recognize that they are measuring things out there that we may not concern ourselves with today, but they do give meaning to the word trend. And one of the big ones is this mental health thing. So we've got a 1,000 worker survey that Lyra Health has done. And they're saying at least 31% of these surveyed are telling us that their mental health has declined over the past year, and 84% of those surveyed said that it's at least somewhat important to have help from an employer or prospective employer on the issue of mental health benefits. Mental health care benefits, big deal anymore. So what's the play on that is that companies are actually refocusing their efforts. And of course, you've got the mental health parity stuff for anybody over 50, but companies are taking action to create a more robust platform to deal with mental health benefits. And so we're going to take a look at that today and kind of flesh some of those strategies and solutions that are out there for leaders in the businesses to use to address these needs in the year ahead. So let's go back to what we said before. Having an EAP with a waiting list, mercy. that's just an indicator that mental health challenges have become ever more apparent during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And they're looking to the employers because they're the ones that provide benefits, right? If you don't have a benefit for a condition, what do you do? I mean, you're gonna. I don't. I don't want to say anything cheeky on this program, but um, the suicide hotline is not our number one go-to. All right. Um, 60% of employee benefit leaders in this survey, Lyra's survey, said that employee expectations have risen over the past year, and it's become a higher priority for their company over the past year, and it's going to remain a high priority over the next 3 years. So let's talk about, what those trends look like. And we have a graphic here. 92% of the leaders said mental health is a big deal. And 93% say it's going to be a big deal for the next 3 years. There's your sign, folks. And if you don't address it today, it will become one of those conditions, just like any other medical condition. Delayed care can make a stage 1 situation become a stage 4, and that's apocalyptic for some people when you're talking about mental health care. I'm sorry, but you've got to deal with mental health when it first comes up. When a person declares they're in crisis, they are in crisis. They've been in crisis, but they're just now voicing that crisis. Amen. So it's of major concern, and the survey here demonstrates that. So let's talk about a few of the issues that create and address some of these conditions. Flexible work policies. Elon Musk just took over Twitter, and one of the things he said is no more remote work, come back to the office. Well, imagine what disruption that has if you've been at home working for the last 2 years, and all of a sudden the boss puts out a command that you will be in the office at 8 a.m., clocking in, clocking out, just like you used to pre-pandemic. Well, maybe there's other issues that have taken place and other systems that have had to be managed in a different manner. And all of a sudden, all this dramatic disruption happens. This is a crash course for employees and employers to bring people back to the traditional work environment. That's crazy, isn't it? That all of a sudden you're back to work now, and you're back to work in an office. The takeaway here is that workers are paying attention to any kind of solution or strategy or a policy change or whatever that affects their sense of control of their life, because that's what we want over our lives. We want control over our life. And organizations that are learning the optimum productivity solution can still allow flexibility, in the location and timing of work, but it's a challenge, and it has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with in a manner that really gets, the employee engaged and gets the employer the productivity that they're compensating for and that they need for the service of their customers or products, right? So here we go, more attention giving to the needs of the family, because you're talking about the worker, okay? But more attention to the mental health needs of kids and families. Only about 20% of children with mental, emotional, or behavioral disorders receive care from a specialized mental health care provider. And you can imagine, where are they getting it? Most of the time, they're getting it from the school system, okay? Or they're getting it from, social services. And those are referrals from the school system. And these unmet mental health needs take a significant toll on working parents. So, extending the mental health basket of benefits to the family members is also a positive thing for employers to deliver to those employees. So, what's the takeaway here? Fortune favors those employers who are increasingly aware of these struggles. And if 1 in 4 benefits leaders are in a recent survey saying they believe childcare and education are top priorities that are negatively affecting the mental health on an employee basis, um, they're coming from a position of family and relationships that are making those issues, you know, come to the front. Let's talk about a greater focus on the destigmatizing of serious or complex mental health conditions. So this is kind of something that's moved into the mainstream. I mean, people are social media, let's face it, social media has brought people out and they are talking about everything under the sun, from the minor cuts and bruises to, oh my God, I'm impatient with alcohol or drug abuse, or, I had a breakdown over the weekend. It's mind boggling. Personal health information, or protected health information, PHI, we call it in our business. Um, they're very guarded when it comes to the employer knowing that, but when it comes to the general public, they put it out there in the street like it's everybody's business, and they need to know. So, what's that created? The prevalence and severity of mental health conditions um, have soared since the pandemic began. And to combat the serious stigma against these things has become a challenge because people recognize issues, but they don't want to discuss them. I mean, it's not stuff that we talk about over the holiday parties. We don't want to talk about that in uh, in the open. Really, it's not been something that's been common talk. But yet here we are coming into the holidays, and sometimes destigmatizing that is part of the conversation. So, you know, if we go without treatment, it can create stage 1 can become the stage 4, bigger repercussions for employers. So we got to work on destigmatizing what this means. And, I don't know how you do that when you're protecting personal health information. You know, it, that's part of the trend in the survey, but it makes it a challenge to be an employer and try to deal with it, right? So, what do you do as an employer? Well, you deliver more mental health literacy and education. And, you know, that's one of those things where messaging is the key to win against the rise in this serious mental illness. Our people leaders, right? The supervisors and frontline folks that deal with employees on a day to day basis have to be educated and trained to be cognizant of signs that an employee is in distress. How do you look for those things? They manifest themselves in different ways. I'm 2 months behind on my rent, or I'm too poor to pay attention. Financial stress this time of the year, holidays, always a big factor. Christmas is coming, Thanksgiving is here. Um, we still eating Halloween candy 3 months after the fact, and that sort of thing. I mean, you know what the signs are. You just have to be a heightened alert on what that is, and become more well schooled and well heeled, if you will, in mental health literacy. And putting that into your training and development is a form of mental health first aid, if you will, that helps get the employees back and into the fold, if you will, and performing at the level that you need them to, while not worrying about some of the other issues that are either in the household or in the environment in which they live, and certainly in the workforce or the workplace where they work. This will help build the resilience in the face of unexpected challenges, because again, we just talked about it. You got a mandate that says come back to the office. Well, that's an unexpected challenge. Look at what unpacking that does. You got to work out childcare, you got to work out transportation, you got to work out meals, You got to work out practices and games. I don't know about you folks, but if you have little kids, every night is covered with a practice or a game. And we're talking, if you're a church going person, you've got church on Wednesdays and Sundays in the Baptist faith. And then you've got games or practices on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Or dance or gymnastics or any of these other things that kids are involved in, school stuff. You've got private lessons, whether they're music lessons for your piano or guitar or any other instrument. A lot of plates are up in the air for parents these days. And let's sprinkle a little schoolwork in there on top of it all. Still got to keep your grades up. So, again, messaging is the key to win, on the training and development of recognizing mental health signs. Okay. All of this, boom, what happens? It focuses on burnout. We see workplace burnout, we see parent burnout, we see all kinds of burnout. And, burnout is a catalyst to this great resignation that we've talked about in prior shows. After nearly 2 years of living under this global health crisis and blurred boundaries between work and home, we've got staffing shortages. People aren't showing. We've got no call, no shows to work. You're having to pick up a double shift if you're still working. There's just a whole lot of variables that have been peppered and salted into the day of the everyday worker. Childcare. If you've got little ones and you're trying to do what you need to keep your job or to serve, or for heaven forbid, if you own your own business, for crying out loud. Burnout is an epidemic of its own. We've talked about mental health, but burnout is part of that mental health issue, right? If you're burnt out, you ain't got any mental health. You've lost it. We used to joke that burnout and PTSD are daily occurrences, and they are real conditions. Here's the thing. I expect we're going to see companies looking to design, workplace structures that address all of this. Mental health conditions, burnout, and just generally promote employee well-being. So what do we do to reduce the risk of burnout for employees? Preventative measures. Well, let's check with our employees. Talking things out goes a long way to figuring out what's going on. And auditing an employee's workload is routine. We used to do that, but if you set it and forget it, you don't come back to it, then you never know if a workload has just got people snowed under and they just can't manage through. I do it myself. I load a lot of stuff on myself and realize, oh, I need help. And it's taken only 50 years for me to figure that out, but I do have help. And I ask for it from time to time. And then you make sure that when you're dealing with employees, you clarify the role. There's a lot of innuendo management that goes on in this world. And failing to appropriately and professionally discuss what a role is and how to complete a task has been lost on a lot of people. And I think that's unfair to the employee workers. And I think you have to go back and revisit and just get to the basics of blocking and tackling, if you will, on assigning tasks, because, we can suppose that someone should know this or know that, but let's face it, clarify your instructions, clarify your expectations, and don't leave these things to chance, because that's what builds that animosity, and animosity turns into an animal, and it can come back and bite you. That's my humor for today. So ensure that role clarity and avoid role overload. And then psychological safety. You've got, everybody's got an opinion about what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And you have to be cognizant of that and, try to offer some sounding board input from their side of the table. So you can say, hey, does this work? It's very simple. Say, did I explain that okay? Or does this work for you? Or does this make sense for you? Do you understand what our objective is here? If you've got an improvement that you'd like to make, let's discuss that. Instead of leaving it to chance and they say, well, I went ahead and took liberty and did this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, Lordy, that's not what we wanted to do. So if they're struggling, you need to help them, and you need to make sure that there's an outlet for that conversation. And because you don't want to find yourself in a workplace where you've got bullying or unfair treatment or policies that are disproportionately enforced to certain groups. I mean, we've all seen the teacher's pets. We've all had favorites. We all know who the favorites are. We've experienced that through school back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, right? But in the workplace, if you want to get some things done, you need to try to be as consistent and even across the board and make sure that you've got no disproportionately enforced rules. Everybody's the same. Everybody's got some limits, and everybody's got guidelines, and we try to keep them fair and rock on. One of the ways you can do that, encourage the regular breaks and the time off, because this is the fourth quarter. Everybody knows it's all hands on deck in our office, but guess what? You still have to look forward to something. So book a vacation, get it on the books, and at least you know it's going to be there so that when you do need to take that outlet, you've got it on the books. Because booking a vacation is as important as going on vacation. My experience, and I hope yours are too. So paid time off, schedule those vacations, get them in the books, and get ready to head to wherever it is you like to vacate, because you need it. Taking your laptop on a vacation is not a vacation. I've been told that by my children, and I believe that to this day, even though I still manage to work it in an hour or two a day. I'm still in recovery mode from trying to wean off that. So the next normal of prizes and the workplace is going to be around this mental health improvement. We want to take care of our folks. We want to deliver a better mental health experience for them. And so the data we've shared here kind of underscores all of that. And, how these work norms are shifting. So mental health needs, just in summary, social media, the news, other factors have employees less likely to tolerate employers who don't deal with mental health needs seriously. If you don't face it, then they're going to be looking for an employer who does. And, the word gets out if you've got a bully or a bad work environment. If you're a friendly work environment, people know it, and it becomes an attraction machine. If you deal with mental health, you have services, you have solutions in place. That's going to be one of those things that help make your jobs become more attractive and recognizing the employees' needs, as opposed to it's the job. Because at the end of the day, when you're trying to attract and retain employees, you're trying to minimize employee turnover. You're trying to retain the ones that you have. You're trying to boost productivity. And honestly, you're trying to reduce healthcare costs. A simple EAP transfers a lot of those issues right over to a flat fee. You got 3 face-to-face or telephonic visits. Boom. That's the first way to understand if you've got a serious issue. And your employees should be taking advantage of that. It should be one of the items that you lead with in your open enrollment meetings here in Q4 for the new year. So don't take it from me, take it from what the survey says. And the survey says the workforce mental health trends are at the top of everybody's list. So that's it for today. If you'd like to have more information about that, I'm sure that I'm happy to spend some time and show you how our clients are achieving those results with solutions and strategies around mental health. So check out www.bettersourcebenefits.com and have a look at the results page and declare insights for clients. We've got the results because we'll restore financial security. We didn't even talk about that in the body of my talk today, but financial security is one of the big deals that can lead to some of this workforce stress. If your medical plan has your employees bleeding from the neck, paying huge premiums with huge out-of-pocket limits, no financial security, then check it out on www.bettersourcebenefits for our results page, and you can get an idea of what having good financial security means to employees so that they can get things fixed and so that a level 1 situation doesn't deteriorate into a level 4. So that's it for today. And join us next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, for Benefits with John Clay, and we'll see you out there. Have a great week, everyone.